Hi, everybody. Welcome to Ann Ortelee, speaking here at OPA Live 2018, our global and personal year perspectives. And my topic is going to be Pluto entering the Capricorn decan. I regret I can't be here live for questions after, but if you have any, feel free to mail them to me. So what we're going to talk about is looking at a slice of the pie, particularly the Pluto slice. And it's an interesting a year ahead because Pluto is changing signs, or is going to be in Capricorn, changing decans rather, entering the next decan, which is the decan of Virgo. And we know, of course, Capricorn is the sign of the goat, and goats like to climb things, and they like to make us aware of things, and they like to force us to think about things that we maybe didn't think about. They are pretty omnivorous. They eat pretty much everything, and they're very frisky. So as Pluto changes decans into a new decan, we can expect a lot of changes ahead in the year for us and also for the next chapter while he's traveling through the last 10 degrees of Capricorn. So first, of course, this is our guy. We're going to be talking about him with a recent picture of him from a flyby from NASA. And what we're going to talk about is the Virgo decan of Pluto in Capricorn. Now, first we're going to have a little review of decans in a minute, but we're going to talk about it. So basically, he enters the third decan of Capricorn on February 7th in 2018, and he stays in that decan until he leaves for Aquarius on November 19th, 2024. The Virgo decan of Capricorn invites us to do Virgo things, to fix or harvest the lessons that we've learned while Pluto has been in the sign of Capricorn. Which he entered in 2008. Traditionally, the third decan of Pluto, or any sign, generates the solutions of the story while the planet rolls through. It also tends to inspire the public, and it tends to transform the collective in lasting ways because we're wrapping up the time we spend in a sign. So we're going to talk about what will Pluto's decan deliver to us to change our relationship to power, as defined by Capricorn, and also how will the U.S.-Pluto return, which takes place in this decan in a few years, shift our vision of the USA. Now, we are in orb of it now. My first astrology teacher says 10-degree approach. So the minute Pluto passed 17, we were in orb, and it's been a wild ride if you've been paying attention to the skies, as power gets challenged on many levels. So first of all, let's talk about why Virgo is so important and why I suggested this to OPA as a topic. First of all, Washington, D.C. is aligned with the constellation of Virgo. And every August 10th, an astrological event takes place in the sky over Washington that ties the city to a pagan goddess, Isis, and also to the constellation of Virgo. Now, it's no mistake that we're hearing a lot about Isis in the world, and certainly as a challenge to us, and that the constellations above kind of correlate with that ancient goddess, as well as the constellation of Virgo. As the setting sun on August 10th floats over Pennsylvania Avenue, it sets directly over the street. And there's 3 stars that are visible in a straight line from the Capitol to the White House in the skies in the west. Known as Regulus, Arcturus, and Spica, the stars form a right-angled triangle framing the constellation of Virgo. The chances of a correspondence being a mere coincidence are really remote. So we assume that whoever was directing the planning of Washington, D.C. had a considerable knowledge of astrology and a vested interest in emphasizing the role of Virgo. Now, we know back in Greece and Egypt, temples and sacred sites were oriented towards the stars. And we also know that many of the founding fathers of the United States were Masons. And the initiation into the Masonic order includes a rite known as the Mysteries of Isis. The Masonic book, Morals and Dogma, links Isis with the constellation Virgo, often portrayed on the city's statuary as a woman bearing a sheaf of wheat, or carrying grain. All the men who surveyed and laid out Washington, D.C. were Masons. Pierre L'Enfant, the original designer of Washington, and his co-worker Andrew Ellicott were Masons, as was George Washington, who was a soldier and a surveyor and knew how to lay out land according to stellar and solar positions. In 1790, when the city was surveyed, Ellicott and Washington were working closely together, and as Washington was the best surveyor in the country, his diaries show an amazing knowledge of the stars. So we have men that are laying out the city of Washington consciously, aligning it with the Virgo constellation. And as Pluto now goes into that Virgo constellation, that decan to Virgo, this is going to amplify the energy of the capital and the energy, our focus in terms of DC. So a couple of cornerstones. The Library of Congress was dedicated on August 28th, 1890. The Sun and Saturn were in conjunction of Virgo, and that, of course, is the Sun is in Virgo. The first marker stone of the city at 3:30 in the afternoon on April 15th in 1791, Jupiter was rising in the constellation Virgo, and the stone was sealed with a Masonic ritual of corn, wine, and oil, which, of course, are all things ruled by Virgo. 18 months later, on October 13th, the second marker was laid as the foundation of the White House, and on that day the moon was rising in Virgo. The constellation stone of the Capitol building, September 18, Sun and Mercury were in the constellation of Virgo. And that ceremony is on the Senate bronze doors, which shows George Washington wearing his Masonic apron, using a trowel to lay the cornerstone. The cornerstone of the Washington Monument was laid on July 4th while the moon was in Virgo. Construction was stalled, and then they began it again in August, and then with that moment the star Spica was rising. The dedication ceremony was when Jupiter was in the constellation of Virgo. You getting the theme here? Virgo, Virgo, Virgo. Now, of course, I'm a Virgo, so I love this stuff. And then, of course, the First Continental Congress was in 1774 in Philadelphia, and it had 4 planets in Virgo, a beneficent chart. Also, the Washington Monument, the Capitol, and the White House are in a rough triangle on the same alignment as Virgo's 3 major stars. Pennsylvania Avenue is the hypotenuse. The Pentagon cornerstone was laid on September 11th, 1941, Virgo. Of course, the attacks on 9/11 were at 18 Virgo on September 11th, 2001. So basically, in 1790, they conceived of linking Washington with the stars and maintaining this esoteric view. So we're going to see Washington, and of course that's the seat of power in the United States, and the Virgo decant is where the Pluto of the United States chart is. And of course they hadn't discovered Pluto yet, so it wasn't like they were working with Pluto knowledge. They were just working with Virgo knowledge. And when we think about what the constellation Virgo is about, it's about humility, it's about service, it's about working for the greater good of humanity, it's about harvesting the good. And it's viewed as a productive and humble sign. Now, if we think of when they were declaring their independence and they were saying, hey, we don't want to be taxed, we want to be free, we want to go off and leave you guys behind and go build our own nation where everybody is entitled to pursue what they want to pursue and there are no kings. Another Virgo is, of course, after the sign of Leo, which is the sign of the king. So with the premise of decances, and this slide is available for you to download, this PowerPoint, we start each sign, and you can apply this to anything, any sign you have, or any planet you have. So in the case of Aries, the first 10 decans are ruled by Aries. The second 10 degrees are Aries Leo, and the third 10 degrees are Aries Sagittarius. So we continue the concept of the fire sign, and we follow an astrological order. So when we get to Leo over here, it starts with Leo Leo, Leo Sagittarius, Leo Aries. And as we go through each section of it, and then we get to Sagittarius, 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 Aries, Sagittarius, Leo. So now we are in Capricorn, Capricorn, Capricorn Taurus, and now we're leaving and going into Capricorn Virgo this year. And what happens is as the planet shifts through the 30 degrees that he travels through in a sign, he takes on the qualities of that new version of what he is. So as a Capricorn Taurus, it's a strong energy. Now in my case, I'm an 18-degree Virgo, so I am a Virgo Capricorn mix. So it's instructive. Think of your sun sign and think of how it balances, or any of your planets. They're all going to kind of fall in this story and help you. And what I like to do is 0 to 959, and then the new number is the next one. So we're about to have Pluto go into 20 Cap, and when that happens, we're going to really feel it. because it's a shift in focus. We're going to shift from the accumulative Taurus stage into this sharing, working together Virgo stage. So this is an example with the degrees and where they work in the sky. And we're going to talk a little bit about Pluto entering the Virgo and Cap decant. Now this year, Pluto also is sextiling 3 times Jupiter, which is important. Back in December of 2007, they met and started a new cycle at 28 Sagittarius 23. And if you remember that, that was Bernie Madoff. That was the Bernie Madoff Christmas story, where we had somebody make off with billions of dollars, and everybody's like, how could he do it? And then right after that, we had the financial markets kind of go into nightmare craziness. And that also was when we started looking at power and how it's used or abused, and understanding it, because Pluto in any sign asks us to look at the darker side of the sign. So on February 6th, Pluto is going to enter the Capricorn Virgo decant, and he is going to be in that sign for a while, till he leaves in 2023 when he enters Aquarius. So this is the chart we're going to be working with over the next few. And I like looking at ingress charts because they give us a lot of information about the story we're about to work with. And as you can see this chart, I always kind of first say to my students, look at the inside. Look at how red it is. So it's a little bit argumentative. We've got Mercury up here. We're in eclipse season. We're about to have a big eclipse in a couple of days on the 14th. We're between the eclipse on the 31st of January and the eclipse on the 14th of February. So the sun is on the south node, and it says to us, okay, the sun is setting on the south node on the eclipse degree, and it's inviting us to transform and change. And of course, Pluto enters zero cap in the house of money from other people, assets from other people. Saturn recently went into Capricorn on December 20th, in a couple of days from now, and he is saying, okay, we're going to meet up. And when these two guys meet up in 2020, we have a whole new story beginning. The last time they met was in 1982, when they joined up in Libra and they began Reaganomics, what we know as Reaganomics, and trickle-down economy. And now we're going to be harvesting that story. And as Jupiter in water comes to sextile Pluto in Earth, in a closing sextile, we're going to see the results of the choices we've been making since 1980. 81, 82, when those two guys last joined in Libra and said, let's partner. Now, what I like about the decans of any sign is what it invites us to do is to look ahead and to look at our chart. Now, the U.S. chart is 21, and this particular year, as Pluto goes into Capricorn, he's only going to get to 21, and he's going to station there on April 22nd and then go backwards and go direct on September 30th at 18 cap. So he's just sneaking into the Virgo decant. And whenever we've had the last decant happen of any sign Pluto's been in, we have the rise up of the people to say, no, this isn't going to happen anymore. So in the AIDS epidemic, in the Pluto and Scorpio years, we had act up form and say, no, we're not going to take this anymore. In the civil rights time, we had Stonewall riots and the riots in Vietnam saying, no, we aren't going to do this anymore. Riots protesting the war. In the Sagittarius decant, we had people protesting against the Catholics, rising up as a group. So we clearly see, as this last little patch of Pluto he's at the last degrees of Taurus. Taurus, of course, is a sex sign. Ask any Taurus, that's one of the most important things to them. And we've had this abuse of power rise up with all these sex scandals coming forward and all this abuse of power. We began Pluto in Capricorn with Bill Cosby, America's dad. Capricorn's a dad sign, being accused of drugging and raping people. And now we're here. We're at this point where there's like all these people drugging and raping people. And that's how Pluto works. He shows you the story and he gets you to go, And then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger until you're kind of like, wow, that's huge. And so that's what we're working with this year. This energy, as Pluto goes into this decant, he's going to say to us, Hey, what was the founding fathers' vision when they tied the whole friggin' constellation of Virgo to the city of Washington, D.C.? What was their vision about what the government would be like? Because Pluto, of course, is Capricorn, too. It's the government. What was their vision of what corporations would be like? What was their vision about power? They were like, no abuse of power. And of course, when people say things like, well, we're too big to fail, that's just kind of a setup for Pluto to kind of go, really? You think you're too big to fail, huh? Okay, let's go talk. Let's go talk. So we can look at this because Pluto's just entering Capricorn and it's Saturn just entered Capricorn. The two of them, as they're getting closer to their conjunction coming in a couple of years, are really going to put the squeeze on how power is used and abused and what we're going to do with it going forward. Now there's 3 Pluto returns coming, and I've included their charts so you can study them yourself. The first Pluto return is in 2022. The second one is July 11th in 2022. And the third and final one is December 28th, 2022. Look at that chart. Isn't that a powerful chart? And on that note, I invite you to study the decans and think of them as little slices of the zodiac that are juicy and rich and very, very cool. And this is Ann Ortelee signing off. I wish you all a great 2018 as Pluto rocks your world and also rocks the rest of the world because he isn't just doing it here in the United States. He's doing it everywhere we look. He wants to fix things when he's in Virgo's sign. It's time to fix things and to come up with our best vision and work towards that. And that's it. Take care and have a great day.